Welcome back to the Future Self podcast. Welcome to season 2, episode 6. An episode I've been thinking about creating for some time, but one I've been nervous to express because I have never wanted it to push people away from wanting to step into a progressive journey. It's a topic of conversation that is very open-ended. It can be taken in a few different lights. And I wanted to make sure that I put enough thought processing behind it, that I had enough backing behind the way I wanted to say things, because future self living, progress, doing right by you, showing up for the future you, it all seems amazing. It all seems like something that's going to be positive, progressive, different, expansive, and whilst it is always long term, it's not without challenge. It's not without fucking difficulty. It's not without friction. It's not without second guessing yourself, being unsure, wanting to regress, wanting to give up, throw in the towel. That is part of living for your future self. That is one of the most progressive aspects of for your future self. Learning to regress is so fucking important. Learning to work with the black and the white, the positive and the negative, the daytime and the nighttime, learning to work with both sides of the equation, because the equation still needs both sides. It is fucking physically impossible to do one thing and it never be met with the opposing side. It is the literal law of life, or one of Newton's main laws, that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And that's fucking true for anything. That is, in any scenario, always going to be applied. If you're taking a risk to make money, there is the risk that you might not make the money. If you're pushing to become progressive, you're going to be exposed to and experience some regressive situations. So in season 2, episode 6, I really wanted to talk about the not so pretty parts of living for your future self, some of the struggles people face. And when I mean some of, I mean every single person that shows up for their future self, they experience this. It is inevitable and it's unavoidable. And I thought, well, I have this knowledge. I am fucking seasonedly fucking veteran in this area. I wouldn't say I'm an expert because I've only been doing it for 5 years. But I thought, why would I gatekeep it? Why would I not expose both sides? Because if you can go into something with a clear, educated mind, knowing that, yo, this shit's going to be hard. I'm going to face some fucking challenge. I'm going to want to give up. I'm going to want to just go back to my old ways. So I really want to talk about being met with friction, being confused, lost, feeling like you don't know yourself. They are all parts of showing up for your future self on a big, big scale. There is this insight I want to give you, and it's something I experience with every single one of my GLCs. Every single person I work with on a one-to-one coaching basis experiences this in some light. Either because they have a major sickness and they get the flu for 2 weeks, they either experience a really big, tricky, navigating, needing situation, they're experienced with some major challenge, something happens. But every journey I work with always starts out motivated. Always. They're keen, they want to rip in, they want to work hard, they're excited to do more, do different. They're just fucking really set in their ways on wanting to make change. And that's why the first few weeks of anything are always easy, in quotation marks. They're still challenge, they're still hard work needing to be demanded and pulled from you. But it's easy because you're keen to do it, you want to do it. After that, things get a little bit more tricky. You're met with new things that you haven't done before. You're exposed to the demand of consistency. You need to do what you were doing while you were motivated longer than just the motivational felt period. You're having to stick to it for some time. Then you're exposed to even more. You're starting to actually be pushed into a routine. You realize, yo, this isn't no fucking challenge. This is no little period of showing up for me. Like, this shit's serious. It's fucking hard. I need to work on my routines, my non-negotiables. I need to elevate my standard. That's why challenges that people run, coaches run, gyms run, are normally only 8 to 12 weeks, because that's a motivational period. It is easy for the most part, to rip in for fucking 8 to 12 weeks. Show up, bust ass, do different, push it. But like all these other podcasts, when I've mentioned challenges or those short-term, high intense, progressive, wanted journeys, there's always that fall off period. And that fall off period happens because shit gets hard. Like, it gets real. It's not a fucking surface level change. Like, you need to really start to evolve who you are in your lifestyle. But anyway, after those challenges, you're exposed to the demand for the consistency, then something normally happens. I've experienced a wide range with so many individuals. Injuries, sickness, issues within the family, issues with a partner, something with work. There's always this period that throws off and increases the stress, the demand for attention, and asks more from that individual than it normally would. And that makes things a little bit cloudy and muddy. They start to fall off a little bit. They start to lose the motivation. They are finding it more challenging to show up for themselves. That is a huge determining point for those who see long-term change and those who don't. I work as a coach in a minimum of 18 weeks. It's a 3-6 week phase commitment. I very, very fucking rarely these days ever see someone leaving shorter than 6 to 8 months. It's normally a 6 to 8 month period, which is a fairly long-term time for setting foundations. But yes, there's this point where you're exposed to the potential to give up because you have this extra stress, or you knuckle down and continue forwards. And most of the time with the ones I work with, I attack it in a very supportive, calm, comforting, educating, understanding dynamic. I understand where they're coming from, the challenges they're facing. Most of the time I relate to them too, and then they continue and we get back on the pathway and you move forwards. And that's when you really solidify the work you have done. Challenge, regression, struggle, for the most part, is the solidification of the foundations that you're working towards, or the things that you are building. You are truly who you are when no one is around and no one knows the work you're doing or the choices you're making. If you show to me that you're tracking your macros great, but behind closed doors, you're not following any of it, that's truly who you are. If you're someone who in a session with a friend, a coach, or around a busy gym is ripping in and killing it, but when you're on your own on a Saturday night in the gym and you're just half-assing it, that's truly who you are. Like, you are who you are when no one is around. But it takes those regressive feeling or high intense struggling exposed situations to solidify the work you've been doing. It takes those experiences to understand what truly needs to be worked on, what you need to do. What I wanted to talk about mostly in today's episode is the feeling of the not so pretty side of progress, of a progressive journey of showing up for yourself. It's probably going to be the fucking hardest thing you do. You're going to be faced with challenges you've never even thought about before. You're going to experience things you didn't think were thinkable. You're going to experience things you couldn't even imagine. You are going to have to navigate some of the most tricky, demanding, and confronting situations you have probably ever experienced in your life. But that's the investment. There is very minimal progressive or expansive or good things that happen in this world without risk. And the risk you and I are taking, the risk you're choosing to apply in your life, is that this shit's going to be hard. I'm going to be demanded in ways that I never thought possible, but I'm going to push through and I'm going to fucking do it. The risk is exposing yourself to potentially some of the hardest things you've ever experienced, been asked, or thought about. That's the risk. There's very little good things in this world that happen without risk. There's risk in everything we do. The higher the risk in a smart setting, usually the bigger the reward or the better the progression. It's so fucking common that I always have the conversation with everyone I work with one to one. I feel like I don't know who I am. I am starting to clash with old friends. My partner just, I don't feel the same with my partner. Why do I not feel like I have a direction? Why is everything hard? Why do I not know where I'm going? There's a point in every journey where you're faced with this confusion, this unknown, the feeling of being lost, the feeling of questioning if what you're doing is the right thing. And if you're trying to show up for you, you're doing the right fucking thing. If you're trying to be a better person, no one can tell you that's the wrong thing. But I promise you, there's probably going to be plenty of people that tell you that's the wrong thing. What you have to understand is that the people you have in your life know the past you. They've learnt that version of you. Your good parts, bad parts, your highlights, your flaws, how you navigate situations, how they can be with you, the dynamic they have with you. That's who they know. If you're undertaking a progressive journey or wanting to do better for yourself, you have to understand that it's going to be something that people need to get used to. It is going to be something that people aren't ready for. You have to have that education, because if you don't, you will act out of emotion. You will project onto that individual. The last episode, just before this one, you will push onto others what is ultimately your responsibility that you need to take ownership for. There's two ways you can navigate it. You either need to give that person complete understanding. You need to understand that they're adjusting to the new you just like you are, or you need to cut them out of your life. It's fucking crap, and they're not very good alternatives because there's no real in between. It is one or the other, but it's just how things are. The things you had in your life served the past you. They served a version of you that I can assume you're not proud of, or you don't love, or you feel like could elevate, and you need to understand that. Things don't evolve and move with you as you move and evolve yourself. That's so fucking important to know. If you were once shy, quiet, let people walk all over you, didn't really have a voice, didn't really stand up for yourself, and you've built relationships on that dynamic, you work in an environment where they've understood that, people aren't going to know what to do when you start backing yourself, having the confidence, knowing who you are, knowing what you want to do. They need to adjust to that. And if they're not willing to adjust to that, fuck that person off. If they're not willing to see that you are working on yourself and trying to become a better human for you, and they're not open-minded enough to adapt and evolve with that, fuck that person off. I've talked about it in so many different episodes, the friction I have felt with others in my life when I started looking after myself. And that's because I was backing myself. I knew who I was and what I wanted, and people weren't expecting that. They weren't used to that. I was a different person a year ago. I was a different person fucking 6 months ago. I'm continuously evolving, and people aren't always open to evolve with you. And that's okay. That's okay. I always experience the conversation where people are getting upset that their partner or their friends aren't understanding them or treating them the way they want to be treated. They aren't acting in the new way that you're acting. And like I've said just before, people either need to evolve with you, or if they're not willing to, you need to reassess that. Fucking someone off out of your life sounds harsh, and I know that. It sounds almost over the top. Oh, well, you're not willing to evolve with me, get the fuck out of my life. Like, to some extent, it is exactly that. And like I said, if you're wanting to work on yourself and be a better human and they're not open to evolving with you, that's kind of what has to happen. If they're open to evolving with you and they're struggling with it, that's okay. You need to support them, help them, and allow them to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and slowly expose them. Stepping stones, another episode that I posted recently. Allow them through the stepping stone method to adapt with you. But if people are dragging you down, holding you back, reminding you you're not who you used to be, projecting onto you that, oh, you're not the fun person you used to be, oh, you're not cool like you used to be, like, they're just not going to serve the version that you're trying to become. The future self is literally a fucking butterfly. That is the mascot for the branding. Because you go from being a caterpillar, you go through the ugly and the hard of building the cocoon, you go through the struggle of the transition between the two, and then you become this butterfly. And if people are used to you being the caterpillar and they're not open and ready for that butterfly, you need to go off on your own. And don't at me for that sounding cringy or cliche, but it's fucking true. And like I was saying before, if people have learned you are the caterpillar, you do this, you act this way, I can do this with them, and you've now become a butterfly or you are becoming one, that's hard for some people. I remember when I went from drinking every weekend, not in a stupid extent, to a fucking teenage extent, going out to the club and partying with friends. And then when I stopped doing that, people started saying, oh, you're not who you used to be. You used to be so much fun. I remember we used to do shots together. You used to always come over. You don't go to any events anymore. And it's like, no, I don't, because I'm looking after myself. What's your fucking issue with that? Like, I kept getting reminded that you're not who you used to be. And it's like, yes, motherfucker, I've gone from a caterpillar to a butterfly. I'm evolving. I'm trying to change. If you don't like who I am now, that's okay. Like, maybe you loved who I once was and you don't like who I am now, and maybe it's time to part ways. You once loved who I was, you don't love who I am now, maybe it's time to part ways. You need to understand you will never be that caterpillar again. Even if you regress, even if you go back to who you once were, you won't be the same. You know more now. You're more conditioned, you're more experienced, you are more seasoned, you are a different individual regardless. One of the scariest things in a progressive journey is detaching from who you once were. Like, I've had the conversation with many of my one-to-one saying, you will never be that fucking person again. And it's an emotional conversation. It usually ends in tears, because if that's all you've known for 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life, being that person, living at that level, thinking at that surface, that's fucking scary. That's fucking scary. Most of the time, a journey I work with lasts usually between 6 months to a year, because I want people to go off on their own. I want people to thrive and continue. The point isn't to be with someone forever. So if you've been the same person for 20 to 50 years and now after a year you're different, you think and feel different, it's fucking scary. Like, you're adjusting to new, and new is one of the most scary things ever. Going down the street and talking to a stranger is fucking scary because it's new. Quitting your job and starting a new one is fucking scary because it's new. Doing something different is fucking scary because it's new. New. You're becoming a new person. You need to be prepared that what you're investing into and the experience of the next month to year to few years is going to be full of new, and that's fucking scary. And it's going to be full of things you've never experienced before. It is normal to feel lost, scared, unsure, question yourself. Everyone experiences that. I've never been part of a journey with someone who hasn't seen them go through those situations. You are reinventing the human being you are. You are learning new foundations. You are applying new routines, new principles. It's understandable when you think about it, when you step out to look back into it. It's going to be a time of just consistent discomfort. Now, there is some broad terminology I've used in today's episode because discomfort can be doing 12,000 steps if you normally do 10,000. But discomfort can also be saying no. Hey, do you want to go out on the weekend? There's a good DJ. Do you want to go out with some friends? No, I don't. You might want to inside, but a little further down, fuck, it's probably not going to serve me. It's not the right choice to make. So no, thank you, I won't. What the fuck? You normally go out. Why aren't you coming out? I just don't really feel like it. That's scary. That's a new situation. If you're a yes man in a non adding you way, in a non fucking coming at you for it, if you're someone who consistently says yes, always surrenders to what people ask you to do, it's scary to say no. It's uncomfortable. People are going to meet that with friction. People are not going to be happy about that. There have been times where I've said no to family events. Not because I don't love my family. I love my family more than anything in this world, and I would support them in whatever ways I possibly can, and I will be supporting them on yachts in the future, whatever. But I've had to say no. It's like, look, I've had a huge week. I really need to knuckle down and film a podcast today and, expand this new part of my business. I'm going to have to miss tonight. I've missed so many family dinners. I've missed so many birthdays. I've missed so many parties because learning to say no to others and let them down to show up for myself was something I knew I just had to do. And it's fucking hard. It's fucking scary. It was one of the most challenging things I had to get used to. The discomfort of letting others down to elevate myself. And now I'm not saying letting others down where if they're really sad and they're struggling and I'm saying, no, don't talk to me, I've got to work. It's not that. It's, hey, we're having a fucking party at the new place. Do you want to come over? Look, I can't tonight. I pushed that over the top. And I do want to warn that learning to say no is important, but don't say no to everything because you need to experience life and you do need to have friends around you. And there are some points in time you need to clash on your boundaries and maybe fuck up your macro tracking for a week. Maybe fuck up your steps or you miss a session because, you want to go with family or see your friends or go to a party. I remember a year or two ago, I was so caught up in the business, and I don't think I've shared this with many people, but I like being an open book because if my experiences can help another person, then I'd rather them learn from my mistakes. But I remember, this is a vulnerable thing too. About a year or two ago, I was so caught up in saying no, and I was so caught up in being met with friction that it went too far that I stopped seeing family for a little bit when they were going and seeing external family. And then my dad's dad, so my pop passed away, and I had to manage the guilt and I had to manage the regret of having not gone out and having not seen family more. But it's also allowed for me to show up for people in ways I've never been able to. I've been able to see a balance and share to people, look, you need to get used to saying no more often, but when it really matters, don't hold the guilt and it's okay to do so. It's okay to go out. It's allowed me to show up for my family, my friends. It's allowed me to make big moves like this new apartment, like my car, like the subscription, my business, the hundreds of people I've worked with this year. It's allowed me to really elevate. And that's what I mean by saying that your journey is going to be met with friction, mistakes, fuck ups, feeling lost. I was really unsure about that at that point in time, and it was a harsh fucking lesson. And it was a lesson that I learned that there's balance and there's okay to feel lost at times, and it's okay to make wrong decisions. It's okay to feel like you were doing the right thing and then learn that you were doing the wrong thing. Like, all of that is okay. I say this to every person. It is very rare that you will ever make the wrong decision. It is very rare you'll ever make the wrong decision. because you will either make the right decision and it work well for you, or you will simply make the choice that creates a lesson for you. Some lessons fucking suck. Some lessons are the shittest things ever. Some feel undeserving. Some feel like, fuck, I wish I didn't learn that, or I would have rather not choose that choice and avoided that lesson, but it'll always serve you in time. You can't make the wrong fucking decision. If you're trying to look after you and do the best you can, you cannot make the wrong choice, because it's either going to serve you and be progressive, or it's going to be a lesson that you learn. It is normal at points in your journey to feel lost. It is normal at points in your journey to feel unsure, scared, worried, guilt, regret, fuck things up. It's everything all comes together to serve you in time. Everything will always hold its place and its value, and it might just take some time to learn. But I just wanted to express in this episode today some of the ugly parts about living a progressive life, some of the discomforts, the side that's very rarely talked about. It's very rare that you hear a progressive coach ever say a progressive journey is going to be one of the hardest things you ever do. That it's going to be full of being unsure, questioning yourself, not knowing if what you're doing is the right thing. But the one thing that I think is your receipt or your backing is that if you're trying to look after yourself, you're trying to be a better human being, you're trying to elevate who you are and work on your flaws and build better traits, you're not doing the wrong thing. You're not being malice. You're not being an asshole. You're not being X and Y of what people say it to you. If you're trying to look after yourself, keep doing it, because you're doing the right thing long term. And if the right thing for you is the wrong thing for someone else, so fucking be it. This is your life. You're here to live it for you. I don't mean that you have to be selfish or arrogant or too egotistical that you're better than everyone else. I mean that if you feel like it's right by you and you know it's going to serve you, go for it. It's okay to let others down sometimes if that means you're showing up for yourself. You don't always have to drop everything you're doing to benefit other people. And that's definitely another podcast episode I'm going to talk about in the future. Season 2 is going to be closing soon. I feel like it will be an 8-episode season because I'm just stinging to get a guest back on. I'm excited to expand the studio into a 2-person conversation. If you made it all the way to the end, I appreciate you, and there's always so much love for anyone who subscribes, likes, shares, posts to your social media. If there's something in this you don't agree with, leave a comment. I'd love to hear. If there's something that you didn't know or really took away from this episode, let me know too. But I appreciate you tuning in. I'm excited to get more vulnerable with you guys in the future and share more of my own personal experiences. Look after yourself and keep doing it for the future fucking you.